How to let go of the past and stop feeling lonely. Hey there, welcome back to Elderly Care. If you're feeling lonely or stuck in the past, this video is for you. We've all been there, those moments when loneliness feels like an old, familiar friend. But today, we're not just talking about loneliness as an inconvenience. We're diving deeper into the emotional weight that can often come with growing older, especially when the past keeps us from living fully in the present. So grab a comfy seat, maybe a cup of tea, and let's talk about how to let go of the past and stop feeling lonely, because you're not alone in this, and there's always room to grow. It's easy to get stuck in the past, isn't it? Have you ever found yourself replaying moments over and over, like a movie you just can't turn off? Maybe it's an old relationship that didn't work out, a dream that slipped through your fingers, or something that was said, or worse, something that wasn't said that's been eating at you for years. Whatever it is, those memories can feel like a weight on your shoulders, always lurking in the background, never really letting you go. For a lot of us, the past doesn't just fade away, it clings to us in ways we don't always realize. Take Linda, for example. She's in her late 60s, a grandma to 3 kids. You'd think she'd be surrounded by joy, right? And she was. But even with all the love from her family, there was this ache in her heart that just wouldn't quit. You see, Linda's husband, Tom, had passed away 5 years ago. They had been married for over 40 years, so you can imagine the hole his absence left in her life. Every year, around their anniversary, Linda would find herself reliving their life together. She'd pull out old photo albums, dust off their wedding video, and let herself get lost in the memories. It wasn't just a simple sadness, it was this deep longing, a kind of grief that never fully goes away. She would think, what if we had done this differently? What if he was still here? Linda's kids would visit, they'd invite her to family gatherings, even suggest outings to help her get out of the house, but she often turned them down. It wasn't that she didn't want to spend time with them, but it felt like nothing could fill that empty space Tom left behind. Her home, once filled with the sounds of their laughter and shared moments, now felt unbearably quiet. The loneliness wasn't just about missing him, it was about all the what could have beens that haunted her thoughts. But here's the thing about holding on to the past, it can sometimes keep us stuck. For a while, Linda didn't even realize that the memories of Tom, as precious as they were holding her back. She wasn't just holding on to the love they shared, she was also holding on to the sadness, the regret, and the what-if thoughts. And after a while, that becomes its own kind of prison. One day, Linda had an epiphany. She was sitting in her living room, looking at the same old pictures of Tom, and something clicked. She realized that while she would never forget him, she was ready to start living again. Linda didn't want to erase the past, but she wanted to make room for something new, something that could fill her life with joy again. So, she took a leap. She had always wanted to volunteer at a local animal shelter but never had the time while raising a family. Now, with more free time on her hands, she decided to give it a try. At first, it was tough. She felt out of place and unsure. But slowly, those first awkward moments turned into something beautiful. Linda started playing with puppies, helping with adoption events, and meeting people who shared her passion for animals. And slowly, she realized something that surprised her: life still had so much to offer. She wasn't just filling the void left by Tom. She was opening herself up to new experiences, new connections, and new joys. I think what Linda learned, and what a lot of us learn when we are brave enough to face the past, is that it's okay to keep the memories. But we don't have to let them dictate our present. Holding on to the past can be comforting, but it can also keep us from experiencing the richness of what's right in front of us. Like Linda, when we start embracing the present, new opportunities can show up in the most unexpected ways. And those little steps forward, however small they may seem, can lead to a whole new chapter in our lives. It's crazy how our brains work, right? Especially when it comes to memories. Our minds seem to latch onto negative experiences, particularly those that involve loss, like a magnet. It's almost like we're wired to remember the tough stuff. A study published in Psychological Science found that negative memories tend to stick around longer than positive ones, and it all goes back to our survival instincts. In the past, remembering something dangerous like a wild animal or a bad fall was crucial for survival. So, our brains are kind of programmed to keep us alert by holding on to those negative experiences. In today's world, though, that wiring can sometimes work against us, especially when we're trying to let go of the past. Take Rick, for example. He's in his early 70s and a retired teacher. When Rick's best friend, David, passed away after a long battle with cancer, he found himself in a deep, emotional hole. For months, Rick was stuck in a loop of memories. He kept thinking about the good times they shared teaching together, taking trips, and all those inside jokes that only best friends get. It was like he was reliving their bond over and over. But here's the thing, while those memories were comforting, they also seemed to amplify Rick's grief. The more he thought about the past, the more it deepened his loneliness. What Rick didn't realize at the time was that his brain was kind of stuck in that emotional state. The longer he focused on the loss, the more it started affecting his mood and his energy. It's like the brain gets trapped in a feedback loop of grief. This is where the science gets interesting. While it's totally natural for our brains to dwell on negative experiences, the good news is that we can actually train our brains to focus on the positive. Studies have shown that we can change the way our brains work, even in our later years. One study by the National Institute on Aging found that people who practice gratitude by actively noticing the positive things in their lives can rewire their brains to experience more positive emotions and less loneliness. It's like giving your brain a new lens to look through. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you start seeing what you still have, and that shift can make a huge difference in your mental and emotional well-being. Rick didn't know all of this at first, but he eventually found a way to start changing his mindset. At the advice of his therapist, he began a simple practice, writing down 3 things he was grateful for every day. At first, it felt forced. He'd sit down at the end of the day and think, what do I have to be grateful for today? Some days, it was hard to come up with anything. But slowly, over time, Rick started noticing the little things, the laughter of his grandchildren when they came over, the beauty of the park near his home where he'd take long walks, and even the new friendships he was forming at his weekly book club. He realized that while David's absence was heartbreaking, there was still so much to appreciate about his present life. Here's the kicker, though Rick didn't just feel more positive because he was forcing himself to be thankful. The act of gratitude itself actually began to rewire his brain. As he focused on what he had rather than what he had lost, his brain started releasing feel-good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, which are key to improving mood. Little by little, Rick began to feel more connected to the world around him. He wasn't replacing his grief or forgetting David, he was simply allowing space for both the pain and the joy to exist at the same time. It's a bit like muscle memory for the brain. The more you practice shifting your focus to the positive, the easier it becomes to feel more grounded in the present. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect at it. It's about small shifts, day by day. So, if you're finding yourself stuck in the past, like Rick was, maybe start small. Try keeping a gratitude journal or just take a moment each day to reflect on something you're thankful for. Over time, You might start to notice that your focus is slowly shifting, and with it, your emotional state, too. Letting go of the past isn't about forgetting what we've lost, it's about creating space for something new. And I know that sounds easier than it feels, especially when the past holds so much weight. But the truth is, the moment we start making room for new experiences, that's when we begin to see a shift. It's like clearing out a closet full of old things you don't wear anymore. At first, it feels empty, but once you make space, it's incredible how quickly the new things can start to fill it. I remember talking to Barbara, a 74-year-old widow, who really opened up about her struggle with loneliness after losing her husband, Arthur, 2 years ago. Barbara's loneliness wasn't just about missing Arthur, though that was certainly a huge part of it. It was about something deeper. It was the feeling of being disconnected from herself. For decades, Barbara had dedicated her life to taking care of others. She was a wife, a mother, a caretaker. Everything she did was for her family, and she did it without thinking twice. But after Arthur passed away, Barbara found herself in a place where she didn't quite know who she was anymore. She'd spent so much time focusing on others that she had forgotten what it meant to focus on herself. Barbara would say things like, "I'm just not sure who I am without Arthur. I don't know what my purpose is anymore." And I get it. Losing a spouse after 40 years of marriage can leave you feeling like part of you is gone, too. But I also remember feeling hopeful as we talked, because I could see that Barbara wasn't looking for a way to erase the past, she was searching for a way to embrace the present. One day, a neighbor of hers, someone who could see how deeply Barbara was grieving, encouraged her to try something different. The neighbor suggested she join a beginner's painting class. Now, Barbara had always been intrigued by painting, but she never felt like she had the time or the confidence to try it. There was always something else to do, something more important. But this time, with a gentle nudge from her neighbor, Barbara decided to take the leap. She was nervous at first, who wouldn't be, but she showed up to the class, unsure of what to expect. And let me tell you, the first few sessions weren't pretty. Barbara's paintings looked more like splashes of color than anything you'd hang in a museum. But that's the thing about starting something new, it's always a little messy at first. We don't just dive in and immediately get it perfect. But what happened next was something magical. As Barbara kept going back to class, something inside her started to change. She started to feel alive again. Each brush stroke, though imperfect, gave her a sense of purpose. For the first time in a long time, she was doing something just for herself. She was exploring a part of herself she had forgotten about in the midst of caring for others. As the weeks went by, Barbara's confidence grew. She no longer felt like she was just existing, she felt like she was truly living. The more she painted, the more she started to realize that she had a unique perspective to offer. Over time, Barbara even started mentoring some of the younger students in her class. She wasn't just painting for herself anymore, she was sharing her love of art with others. It was like a light bulb went off. She had rediscovered her voice, her joy, and her passion. Barbara found a new chapter in her life, one that wasn't about looking back at what was lost but about embracing what could still be. She found that there was still so much left for her to discover about herself. And the beauty of it is that this new chapter didn't erase the memories of Arthur, it just allowed Barbara to create new memories, new experiences, and new connections. Through painting, she wasn't just filling the space left behind by Arthur's passing. She was creating something completely new, a life that was entirely her own. What's remarkable about Barbara's story is how often we underestimate the power of small shifts in perspective. She didn't need to completely change everything about her life to start feeling better. All she needed was to make a little room for herself, to try something that sparked her interest, even if she wasn't sure where it would lead. And that's really the key. It's not about finding a grand, sweeping solution to the pain. It's about finding ways to reconnect with yourself, to do something that brings you joy, and to remind yourself that life still holds possibilities. I've seen similar stories with many people like Bill, who took up woodworking after retiring, or Sarah, who learned how to play the piano after years of putting her own hobbies on the back burner for her kids. The thing they all have in common is that they chose to create new experiences. And in doing so, they didn't just move on from the past, they started to live fully in the present. So, if you're struggling with loneliness, or if you feel like you're stuck in the past, I encourage you to take a step, however small it may be. It could be something you've always wanted to try, but never got around to. Maybe it's taking a class, volunteering, or even just taking a walk in a new place. The goal isn't to forget the past, it's to create a space in your life where the past doesn't have to dominate. It's about making room for the present, for new experiences, and for a new version of yourself, one that still honors everything you've been through but also embraces what's to come. Just like Barbara, you might find that when you make space for something new, you begin to see the beauty that's been waiting for you all along. We've all been there, haven't we? Those moments when we're hard on ourselves, thinking we should just snap out of it or get over things faster. Especially when loneliness creeps in, it's easy to feel like we're the only ones stuck in the past. We might even ask ourselves, why me? Why can't I just move on? But here's the thing, it's okay to not be okay. It's not only okay, it's human. We don't need to rush our healing, and it doesn't make us weak to admit that we're struggling. In fact, allowing ourselves to be kind to our own hearts is one of the most powerful ways to move forward. Take Frank, for example. Frank is 66, a retired doctor who spent his entire life being the fixer in his family. He was the one who always had the answer, the one people turned to when things went wrong. But after retirement, things shifted. Frank found himself alone in a quiet house, the phone ringing a lot less frequently than it used to. And with that quiet came a lot of space for regret to creep in. Frank felt guilty, like he hadn't spent enough time with his wife when she was alive, like he hadn't been as present for his kids as they'd grown up. These thoughts weighed on him, like heavy stones in his chest. Now, we've all experienced those what-if moments. The regret that keeps us awake at night, playing and replaying the things we wished we'd done differently. But Frank, after a while, decided to try something that would change the way he looked at those thoughts. He started practicing mindfulness, just sitting quietly, focusing on his breath, letting go of all the past noise for a little while. At first, it wasn't easy. His mind would wander, dragging him back into those feelings of guilt. But over time, Frank began to notice something. Every time he focused on his breath and just stayed in the moment, it became a little easier to let go of the past, if only for a short while. Mindfulness isn't magic, it doesn't erase the past or take away the pain of losing someone we love. But it does something incredibly powerful. It gives us the space to feel our emotions without letting them take control of us. It teaches us that it's okay to feel what we feel without punishing ourselves for it. Frank realized that he couldn't change what happened, but he could change how he responded to those memories. Instead of carrying around guilt like a burden, he learned to let it go, even if it was just for a few minutes each day. Over time, those small moments of peace added up, and Frank found himself carrying less weight from the past. He wasn't perfect, but he was kinder to himself. This is where self-compassion becomes so important. It's about giving ourselves permission to be human. We make mistakes, we have regrets, and that's okay. It doesn't make us failures, it makes us real. So, If you're feeling lonely or like you're not where you should be in life, try being a little kinder to yourself. Treat yourself the way you would treat a friend who's going through the same thing. You'd never tell a friend to just snap out of it, so why say that to yourself? Frank's journey shows us that healing doesn't have to be a race. It's not about getting to the finish line of moving on, it's about taking things day by day. It's about learning to breathe, to feel, and to show ourselves the same kindness we show others. Section 5. Building new connections. Connections, whether they are with friends, family, or new communities, are truly what make life rich and meaningful. If you're feeling lonely, the simple truth is that building new relationships is key to overcoming that isolation. And I know it can feel overwhelming to start from scratch, especially if you've recently lost someone close to you. But sometimes, all it takes is one small step to open up a whole new world. Let me tell you about Jim, a 70-year-old retiree who found himself in a similar situation. After his wife passed away, Jim moved to a bigger city to be closer to his daughter and grandkids. You'd think that living near family would solve everything, but Jim still felt isolated. He missed his old life, his old friends, his hometown, the sense of familiarity he had always known. It was as if, even with family nearby, he still felt like a stranger in his own life. One day, Jim's daughter encouraged him to join a local senior walking group. Now, Jim wasn't exactly thrilled about this idea. Walking with a bunch of strangers, he thought. No thanks. But his daughter was persistent, and after a little nudging, Jim decided to give it a shot. He showed up to the first walk, unsure of what to expect. He felt awkward, a bit out of place, but he kept going. And something surprising happened. Over the course of a few weeks, Jim started looking forward to these walks. He wasn't just getting exercise, he was meeting new people, exchanging stories, and feeling more connected to his new community than he had in a long time. It didn't stop there. As Jim continued to walk with a group, he started to take on a more active role. Before long, he became the unofficial leader of the group, organizing outings, making plans, and even starting a walking club at the local library. Jim had found a new sense of purpose, not just by connecting with others, but by being a part of something bigger. He was no longer just a man walking around the city alone. He was a member of a community, a person whose presence mattered. What Jim's story shows us is how connections can have a profound impact on our lives. It's easy to feel like we're too old to start making new friends, or like it's too late to build a new community. But it's never too late. Whether it's joining a walking group, attending a class, or even just chatting with neighbors, every little connection helps build a bridge out of loneliness. And you never know where that first step might lead. Like Jim, you might end up not just finding new friends, but rediscovering a sense of purpose and joy in the process. Building new connections isn't just about filling the space left by someone who's gone. It's about enriching our lives, about finding new reasons to smile, new people to laugh with, and new experiences that make us feel alive again. So, if you're feeling lonely, don't be afraid to take that first step, however small. Sometimes, all it takes is one hello to start a whole new chapter in your life. Letting go of the past can often feel like an impossible task, especially when we're carrying the weight of regret, loss, and missed opportunities. But here's the thing, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing the people, the experiences, or the moments that shaped us. Those memories are still a part of us, and they always will be. Letting go is really about creating space for new memories, new joys, and new possibilities that can make our lives feel fuller and richer, even in the later years. It's important to remember that this journey is not something you have to do alone. And it's definitely not something that has to happen all at once. Healing, moving forward, finding peace. It takes time. It's not a race, and there's no right way to do it. It's okay to take your time, to stumble, to feel unsure. The key is to start taking small steps, even when those steps feel difficult. Sometimes, those steps can be as simple as practicing mindfulness. Like we talked about with Frank, mindfulness can be a lifeline. It's just about being present, being kind to yourself, and acknowledging that it's okay to feel what you feel. No judgment. No rush. Just giving yourself permission to exist in the moment without the heavy burden of past mistakes or regrets. It's a powerful practice that can help you reclaim your peace, one breath at a time. Other times, those steps might mean being a little gentler with yourself. We're often our own worst critics, right? We think we should be doing more, feeling better, or moving on faster. But the truth is, there's no should when it comes to grief, loneliness, or healing. There's no timeline that we have to follow. Being kind to yourself, accepting your emotions, and giving yourself the space to heal is a huge part of finding peace. And then, there's finding new hobbies or connections. Whether it's picking up a paintbrush, joining a walking group, or even just sitting down with a good book or a friend, these things create new paths for us. They don't erase the past, but they can certainly make it easier to breathe again, to feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. They allow us to discover new joys, new sources of fulfillment, and new ways to connect with the world around us. So, if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed by the past, remember, it's okay. You're not alone in this. We all have our own journeys of letting go and finding peace, and it's okay to take yours at your own pace. You don't have to have all the answers right away. But if you start small, if you start with one step, one change, one new way of thinking, you might just find that peace isn't as far off as it seems. I really hope this video has given you something to think about, maybe even inspired you to take that first step toward letting go and finding a little more peace in your life. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. We're all on this journey together, and it's okay to lean on each other. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe to Elderly Care for more content like this. And please, leave a comment below. Let me know how you're letting go and finding peace. We're all here, learning and growing together, one small step at a time.